Dune 2, the violent story of all-consuming drug addiction and xenophobia, where the good guys are mostly bad and the bad guys are entirely bad, and I can't pronounce anyone's name except the guy named Paul.
What if Paul Atreides were still alive?
Your favorite Eldritch Horror here, bringing you a review of one of the best sequels in movie history. Because truly, what bigger compliment can you pay to a director and writing team than the sequel being better than the original? The movie starts with us following up with Paul and his Bene Gesserit mother. I mean, personally, I don't see how anyone in the galaxy could trust these Bene Gesserit witches. I could just as easily imagine them being universally thrown into volcanoes, as they are clearly manipulative, conniving, and malicious. But hey, he who controls the spice controls the universe. Timothée Chalamet and his Sandy girlfriend, played by Zendaya, go on a campaign of guerrilla warfare, attacking spice production across the Northern Hemisphere. And during this campaign, he earns the trust of the Fremen. Good timing, too, because the old Harkies are bringing out their big guns. Drax the Destroyer has been fired, and his brother or cousin, Fade Ralpha, is stepping up. His character is introduced as comically evil, killing a pair of assistants to test the sharpness of a knife, and apparently feeding them to some cannibal women he keeps as pets. He then goes on to fight in a fixed arena battle against drugged prisoners while wearing a force field. Frankly, this is not how you prove to me that a character is dangerous. This is some Commodus-type grandstanding. However, one of the prisoners isn't drugged, so Fade is faced with a pretty decent challenge. Honestly, the Harkonnen family dynamics don't seem very friendly or loving. They are from a planet with a black sun and enjoy inky black fireworks, though let's not judge the Harkonnens on color alone. And can someone explain to me why the Baron is so fat while everyone else on Gady Prime seems to be on the verge of starvation? Aren't the Harkies fabulously wealthy due to their control of the spice? Back on Arrakis, good old Timothée Chalamet and his mother are in deep. His mother has drank the poisoned water, becoming the reverend mother of the Fremen people and assuming a role as some kind of high wizard or priest, respected and powerful. She also now has the voice, basically telepathically forcing people to bend to her will, which she uses liberally even on small tasks like, hey, can you go fetch that person over there for me? She then travels south to stir the fanatics, always playing politics no matter how deeply she delves into Fremen culture. Meanwhile, in the north, the tide of war turns as Timothée Chalamet Ding Dong learns to ride the sandworms and finally gets to taste Zendaya's sandy desert spray. You know what I'm saying? Fade Ralphie Boy intervenes with the genius military tactic of bomb the absolute shit out of them. I mean, even the Baron calls this genius. Did Batista really not try this during his rule? I mean, the Fremen clearly have to live in the Rocky Mountainous areas as the worms control the sandy desert. So you're telling me that they seem to have known all along where the Fremen might be? Are they on some kind of strict artillery budget and they couldn't afford shells? In the first movie, they mentioned billions being made on a yearly basis while the Harkonnens ran the world. And them being as ruthless as they are, it seems that they would have glassed the entire planet. But to be fair, scale must shrink, first from the imagination of the writer to the page, and then again from the book to the film. This is especially apparent when referencing real-world history, where it's easy to name a war few people have ever heard of, like the Taiping Rebellion, the Chinese Civil War, where as many as 70 million people died in only 14 years. It's difficult to write a compelling story about a single person within something of that scale. Now imagine an intergalactic empire. Back to Timothée Chalamet on his path to becoming the true Messiah. He has finally traveled south, or more accurately, was driven south by Ralphie Boy. Once there, he commands the Fremen people by breaking their customs and using his prescience to convince them that he is in fact the man with the plan to crush the Harkonnen clan. He and his army of fanatics need one last item, Gurney Halleck and the Atreides stash of atomics, which in this universe means nuclear weapons. Atomics refer to a fission reaction, while nuclear being a fusion reaction, though I agree with Frank on this one, atomics sounds a lot cooler. And Frank was born in 1920, so he was 25 when we atomized Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and I am sure that left an impression on his young mind. Now armed with millions of brain-dead religious fanatics, dozens of high-yield warheads, and the command of colossal sandworms, Timothée Chalamet calls the Emperor to Arrakis to end this once and for all. And it's quite an impressive sight. The fleet of ships bearing the Sardaukar, the galactically feared warriors of the Emperor, the unstoppable forces of death and destruction. Oh no, wait, they're all dead. That was awesome, but I really wish that scene was longer. The atomics, the worms, and the Fremen make short work of the Sardaukar. And while it was an impressive host the Emperor brought with him as a personal detail, it still felt like it wasn't enough. Once again, I struggle to suspend disbelief that he does in fact run a galactic empire. Also, Christopher Walken is such a specific human, it did sort of throw me a bit when I first saw him and heard him speak. The finale ends with the Great Houses threatening to besiege Arrakis as they oppose the Emperor being overthrown and refuse to accept Timmy as their new lord. But he threatens to nuke the spice fields and presumably remove the resource from use by any in the galaxy. I give Dune 2 a 19 out of 21. 7 out of 7 sacrificed cultists. The movie was absolutely stunning. Both the live action and CGI was spotless, and I couldn't find any faults in look and feel. The weight of things, the differences in materials and their interactions. Truly, this is a production crew of artists at the top of their game. 6 out of 7 screams of the damned. The emotional impact was right on point. I loved the interplay between the Fremen wanting their homes back and the Atreides wanting revenge, and not caring if that meant paying for it in Fremen blood. The characters and acting was near perfect. I will, however, admit I struggle to see Zendaya as a hardened desert warrior and not a Hollywood actress, and I struggle to see Timothy Chalamet as a powerful and commanding leader. 6 out of 7 Tentacles of Cthulhu. The writing was excellent, the plot was tight and never felt like it was wasting my time or unfocused. I was deeply engaged throughout the film. My only criticism is the inconsistency in weaponry and scale. The Fremen possessing handheld laser weapons that cut through enemy vehicles so easily, it makes me wonder how they could ever lose a war. Add to this, the Fremen essentially holding every conceivable advantage. It was hard to see them as an underdog. That being said, I expect the first scene of the third film to be the Fremen losing a bitter battle in space over Arrakis, since the final scene of the film shows the Fremen boarding the Emperor's ships, as if to imply that they would engage in space combat against the Great Houses. These desert people who have never once been on a spaceship, it would be good writing to include some kind of learning curve. No matter how deeply they believe in their messiah, that doesn't teach them how to operate ships or how to conduct effective space warfare. I had mixed feelings about the first Dune movie when it came out. Not great, not terrible. But this second film was so good that it paints the first in a new light. I just recently rewatched the first Dune and actually enjoyed it far more. I really must applaud the writers and director for having the vision to pull this off, and I cannot wait to see the next installation in what will likely become a long-running franchise. I give this my highest recommendation. Go see it immediately. That's all for today, mortals.